Hello, my fellow humans, and welcome to our podcast. Today, I'm excited to introduce our guest, Mike Peterson. Mike is founder of Apex Consulting Partners and the author of Leading in the Age of Digital Disruption. With nearly 2 decades of global leadership experience in HR and IT, he's helped organizations build high-performing, trust-driven teams in the face of rapid change. Mike is known for turning complex leadership challenges into clear, actionable strategies that anyone can use right away. Mike, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much, Justin. I'm super excited to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Hell yeah. Glad to have you here. Love to know more about your career because IT and HR, they're kind of like two different fields. I want to know more about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a very, I think, unusual background. Way back in the day in college, I was in the Geek Squad at Best Buy with
Ooh.
the clip-on tie and everything, and so learned computer repair and started my passion for technology in my personal life. Meandered into another kind of odd career as a wildland firefighter. Did that for 3 years. My last year, I was a crew leader and led a team of 20 firefighters out in the forest, and then made a very big change into corporate human resources. So I decided to leave being a firefighter, reached out to my network, and actually two people that were previous firefighters worked at this company, BioMarin, and it's a pharmaceutical company that was actually pretty close to my dad's house in California. I was living in Colorado at the time and ended up kind of networking my way into HR. But my career really took off because of the IT aspect of my skills. So I did a lot of hard work, but was also at the right place at the right time. And BioMarin exploded from 600 employees to 3,000. So in that kind of growth, you have a lot of opportunities to apply for new jobs as they open up. So in 8 years, I had 8 jobs with 8 different bosses, traveling all over the world, really focused on kind of implementing technology in the different areas within HR. Yeah, super, super fun. Was also an HR business partner for IT organizations. So I had a good understanding of how they operate. I left BioMarin to join a smaller pharmaceutical company of 60 employees, and we were getting ready to grow to 500. So still a lot of growth, but much less. The first thing I did was turn to technology and implemented a lot of technology for the HR department. And my boss, the kind of one of the kind of chief executives, was so excited about what we did. She says, like, "Can you do this for the rest of the company? Can you take over leadership for HR?" And said, "Yeah, what the heck? Let's give it a shot." And it is very unusual combination of skills, but the more I really sunk my teeth into it, the more I realized that HR and IT are so much more valuable to organizations if you do them both together rather than the sum of the parts being done separately.
I can definitely see that. And I work with a lot of different HRs and they don't really understand technology. Or
Yeah.
don't know like, well, we could do this an easier way, but I don't want to take the time to do this, or they don't want to touch it. So having that broad scope, that actually kind of helps drive companies a lot better, a lot more forward to
Yeah.
implementing stuff and to the company to do better.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. I mean,
amazing.
most people, when I tell them that I do HR and IT, they're like, "What? Like most
Oh,
HR people don't even know how to use their computer, let alone,
that's what I was
run
thinking.
a whole department." But it's super fun. I built my own website when I was 20 years old, just doing old-fashioned HTML code before CSS was really even a big thing. And
I think I remember that.
yeah, and I just have always loved technology, and it's so powerful when you cross it over with other aspects of running a business.
I absolutely agree with that. So being in HR also, that give you the ability to really drive forward the impact of things you implemented for those companies and kind of have more of like an upfront, like, hey, we can do this. This is what it does for us kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I started my company about a year ago with the idea of focusing on people, process, and technology. So
Oh,
right now,
yeah.
these three aspects, they need to exist to be successful, right? You can't just drop ship a piece of technology without it being wrapped around a process and without people to click the buttons. That
Here you
might
go. Good
change.
luck.
Yeah, that might change in a little bit, but as AI gets more and more advanced, but as of now, all of those are required for successful teams. And so having that visibility and thinking about whether it was an HR initiative or an IT initiative or a finance initiative, thinking about that lens of, okay, what do we need to do from a people perspective? What do we need to do from a process perspective? And what do we need to do from a technology perspective? And then overlay those together was just an incredibly valuable way to really see how successful an initiative is going to be.
That sounds so invaluable because just thinking about that makes so much sense. What are some things that you've encountered when trying to implement things into a company with in terms of creating processes and stuff? You were saying earlier that like well what most companies do is they here's the technology, good luck, you either like it or you don't.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
doesn't work. People are like,
yeah.
they resist. They're like, what are you trying to do? This is our process. This is how we've always done it. So what's kind of those steps you've taken to kind of when you implement certain things? Like, how's that work?
Yeah, yeah, all good questions, and everything that you just said really resonates with me and things I hear all the time, even today working with
Yeah,
clients,
maybe I've done that.
And when I took over responsibility for IT, we had that dropship mentality, like, oh, hey, we implemented this tool, go use it.
By the way,
Yeah, and so in my book that I just wrote, Leading in the Age of Digital Disruption, I talk about leading through technology. So very different connotation than leading with technology, right? Leading with technology, I have a cat visitor, is that dropship mentality. How we need technology, so we're just going to go ahead and implement it, but we're not going to really think about how we lead through that technology. I think it's really important to think about with any piece of technology, how are we going to integrate this into everything we do? And I think that is a conversation that is sorely missed at a lot of
yeah.
companies. And so thinking about the change management of this, and I use communication platforms as an example of this because this is something that I think almost every company has, right? Whether they're 3 employees using WhatsApp as a company communication platform, or a 10,000 person company using SharePoint or whatever that might be, Microsoft Teams. Um, thinking about, okay, we need a way to communicate as a company. We need a way to organize our communications and our people to make sure they're working on the right things rather than drop shipping it and say, okay, team members do it. How can we communicate? She's coming back. How can we communicate our corporate goals through this platform? How can we communicate our company-wide meetings through this tool? Right. So it's not just a side thought. It becomes a part of the being of the organization. Right. The organization is Microsoft Teams, and Teams is the organization, and it has to go all the way up. Right. The behaviors are really set at the top, so it can't just be a CEO saying, well, I'm too busy to use it, so I can't, but everyone else should, right? It needs to be integrated into how they communicate with their teams.
Seen that quite a few times.
Yeah, and then explicitly communicated to their leadership that this is how they need to communicate with their teams and so on. So, change management, actually thinking about how you're going to get these behaviors to be implemented, what problems you're trying to solve, what human actions need to change in order for this to be successful are pieces of the equation that are easy to skip because it takes a lot of time, and it's oftentimes hard to really conceptualize the value that those conversations bring.
And I like how you talked about change management. That's kind of a concept I kind of just learned about. I
Hmm.
didn't really understand what that meant. I've always worked for like small businesses.
Yeah.
I've learned when you have a larger business, that change management really comes into play. 'Cause like you were saying, there's a lot of pieces that really go into that. I was like, it kind of makes sense. God, you bring in some huge like piece of software like Teams or something and say, everyone's going to do this. Okay, here you go, do it. You can't just do that because you're gonna have like people fighting you here, not using it. Some will go back to the old product, not using it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And change management is something I would definitely recommend spending more time on. There's a lot of different change management models.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a big part of my book or what I've been talking about recently, but I love the ADKAR model. And ADKAR is a terrible acronym because it doesn't really roll off the tongue very well, but I think it's very powerful. So it means it's ADKAR, means awareness. So are people aware that change needs to happen? Are people aware that there are gaps in our current process? D is desire, right? Is there a desire to change, right? Is it one of those things that, okay, it's broken, but we don't really need to do anything about it? It's the way we've always done it.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, and so once people have the desire to change, is there the knowledge, right? Do you need to educate people about the value of this change? Once they have the knowledge, then A is ability. Do people have the ability? Do they need training? That's often something in technology that's overlooked, right? With that drop
Yeah.
shipping, right? The training needs to be, do they have the ability to run this new process? And then R is reinforcement. So really, what are you doing post go live to make sure that we're reinforcing the behaviors that we want to see, where we have a system of rewards or whatever that might need to be to make sure that people are doing what they need to do.
Yeah,
And so
actually,
ADKAR, super, super powerful.
I like that acronym. I have to remember that, ADKAR. I've come across that quite a few times in organizations I've worked with. Like IT will throw something at them that people are like, oh, why the hell do we need this? And kind of you have to create that, like you said, create that need for that desire. I mean, how do you do that though? It's like as IT, for example, you know that hey, this will make your job better. You need this. But them as like their HR or they're one of the, doing another job, how do they have that desire or that foresight to see this will make my job better? This is something we need. How do we know we need this?
Mhm.
And what's there's a huge disruption in that process if you do implement it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a big part of that is kind of walking a mile in someone else's shoes, right? And making sure that you as the implementer, which is often IT, really understands the needs of the business and can really see firsthand what the problems actually are and make sure there's value. And kind of bringing the business or the client along with them on that journey to really kind of co-discover that value together, um, and drive that desire because it's oftentimes there whether the person realizes it or not. You just need to kind of lead them to that crumb trail to get them to where they need to go.
I feel that. Okay, I find myself in that same situation many times, trying to figure out how to have this conversation with them in a way they understand, but also a way that I understand their processes and like you said, where they're trying to go. I find myself at a hard wall a lot of the times, not understanding how to exactly have those conversations or what goes into those conversations or help them lead them to the water and drink it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And this kind of like one of the trickiest parts is that these conversations just they take time. And oftentimes clients are too busy to help themselves, right? They come to
Yeah.
you because they're like, I know I need to change, but I don't have time to change. And I'm working with a client right now, or really a prospective client because they haven't officially hired me, but I'm trying to get them to look at their process. So they've decided they need a new HRIS, a new HR information system to drive their HR process, and they've already picked a solution, right? They've signed a contract with an HR technology company, but they still don't really know what they want. They don't really know the problem that they're trying to solve, and they're coming in to me to say, well, now that we've picked a solution, we want to hire you to help make it successful.
Find our problems for us.
Yeah, and I'm saying, well, wait a second. We've really put the cart before the horse, and we need to back up a second and really understand where the gaps are right now. What problems are you trying to solve by bringing in a new piece of technology? Uh, and then maybe we discover that, hey, this company is actually not the best fit for us. Maybe there's a better tool for us. I don't know, and just keeping their attention has been very difficult because they're just too busy.
I
They're
feel
It's
that.
very hard to catch that time.
I see that a lot with people because it takes so like I always let people know like between like IT and cybersecurity, it takes two to tango. I mean, it's not just one sided. We
Mhm.
both need to work together to get this implemented and going. But like you're
Yeah,
saying, it usually is that kind of one sided. You know what needs to be done to move the needle. At the same time, they're not doing their part of playing their role that they need to in moving that needle. And it's like you can't play this cat and mouse game. It's almost like sometimes you're like, why am I doing this? But then I realized it's that journey that you have to figure it out and to really fine tune how to talk to those people and get them on board.
Yeah.
That's the fun part.
Yeah, that's a really funny. It's an interesting topic about cybersecurity, like you just said, because
Yeah.
I'm sure most of your clients don't think that cybersecurity needs any input, right? It's just like you build the walls, keep everyone out, and they don't necessarily realize that the biggest gap is honestly their internal user behavior, right? And social
Yeah.
engineering, and it's very hard to safeguard against everything.
Yeah, because they're still in that reactive mindset and not understanding what the proactive mindset is. Because it's the same thing with not with cybersecurity, but their business and their life. You should be proactive in the way you do things and not react as soon as something comes up and trying to figure it out. And you should always have like a game plan, like you said earlier. Having a process in place really helps mitigate that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
tough though trying to get them to understand those things. And like, hey, you need both, not just one. Because like a lot of companies, they just have the IT, for example. They don't understand they need, especially in healthcare, you need an IT department and you need a cybersecurity department. And they both need to work together, not with just with each other, but with the other people in the company, like as you were saying, say behavior change. And that's
Yeah,
what we kind of teach also. Like we have to change our behavior together, not me telling you, hey, you do this and you'll be safe. You're not going to be 100% safe, but if we work together and changing that behavior, then we're going to be safer than we were before.
yeah,
No, it's a
yeah.
hard conversation to really have, and if we get it, we understand it. But all the different people that we're talking to about it, we have to really speak their language and narrow it down to ways to help them understand it. And sometimes they don't. They don't care. What do you do? I've learned that too. It's weird. They're like, oh, whatever. We don't care. We don't need this. I'm like, it's
Yeah,
it's tough.
it is really
Really tough.
tough. It is
How
really
do you
tough.
have some of those conversations with your clients in terms of that? I know you do IT, but I'm sure you're talking about cybersecurity as well because those are two important things.
Yeah, yeah, and so my company doesn't do a lot of the kind of hands-on cybersecurity that a typical cybersecurity company would do, but we certainly do a lot of kind of high-level strategic consulting, right? Like you don't have any SSO, you don't have a firewall, right? We need to bring in these people, specialized vendors to kind of come in and build it. But you know, just a conversation about people, process, and technology is kind of hard enough. I have
That is true.
a lot of people who don't necessarily think there's any connection between those things. And I think it comes down to transparent communication. I talk about this in my book. There's kind of three leadership pillars. One is trust, one is accountability, and then the bottom of the triangle is transparent communication. And all three of these aspects build on each other, right? You can't have one without the other. Very similar to the people, process, technology triangle. And it's about really making sure you communicate very clearly in ways and language that your audience is going to understand, because certain people have different values and there's only so much time in the day, right? So you need to make sure you understand what values drive that person's actions and their goals, and making sure you're communicating how your recommendation is really going to add value to their agenda, right? Their mission, their goals. Because if if I just kind of beat someone's door down and say your IT processes suck, you have a huge
You're
risk with
doing it
cybersecurity,
wrong.
you're doing it wrong, yeah, they're going to come in and say, whatever, we're fine.
Yeah.
Communicating, at least what I've found, is kind of communicating what it means in terms of dollars for their business. What I do with my company is build high performing teams. And people don't really realize that kind of coasting with mediocre performance, or even worse, poor performance,
Dangerous.
really costs the company an incredible amount of money. And so if you can conceptualize how much money your work is going to save, or how much value your work is going to add to their organization, it's much easier to have a conversation.
I just heard that recently from my coaches. Putting that terms into a dollar amount for the businessman to understand.
Yeah.
I came at that the wrong way before many times, not understanding that they look at IT as a cost center and not as something that's actually protecting their company and helping them drive things forward. Like you were saying, it's very valuable getting them on board to understand that. And putting that dollar amount to it, like they get that, they understand that.
Yes.
It always blows my mind when you're talking to these business owners, like, you're running a business. Why would you think about process and people like you were talking about? That makes sense how you'd run the business like that. If you have a system, it runs better. You need a system for everything, but a lot of businesses don't have that. They don't get that. But how are the businesses running? It's like blows my mind.
Yeah.
But you can't scale without a system. That's what I've learned. I
Yeah.
haven't scaled yet, but that's what I've been learning. You need a system in place and process that you were talking about.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
tough
Absolutely.
conversation.
Completely tough. Yeah. And I feel like, employee development and performance management, those are also viewed as kind of cost centers, right? You say, a small project could end up being $20,000, and a big project of completely overhauling, company performance management at a 5,000 employee company could easily cost a couple hundred thousand. But the CEO's like, well, the company just kind of runs itself. Like, what am I really getting for this $200,000? It's hard to, you can't hold it in your hand.
Right?
You can't really see it. So is it really worth it?
Make
And
believe.
make believe.
I just had a similar conversation with one of my clients where they were buying like printers, for example. They're buying these cheap printers and not understanding that they're inexpensive for a reason because those toners cost more than a printer almost. So those toners have less ink in them, and so over time they're spending way more than the printer. I had to create a chart for them and put it into that and show them the more expensive printer, you get more use out of the toner. And it's had like that comparison of the cost. And they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we'll do it." I'm like, "I've been trying to say this to you. I put it in the chart, and now you get it." Hmm. Now I learned something.
Yeah, I know. I feel like those cheap printers they're like designed to be disposable now.
They are,
They're
but
so
the
cheap.
toners are so expensive for some of them. They spend
Yeah,
like $200 on an OEM toner. It's ridiculous. That's how
yeah,
much the printer costs. Like,
I know. Yeah, and
you know,
people don't realize often that the printers come with a smaller pack of toner
yeah.
than the ones you buy afterwards, and so it always seems like, well, it's just cheaper to buy a new printer than to refill the toner, but it's
But that's that. You have to reframe that for them, kind of like we were talking about. I use the word reframe. That's my
yeah,
favorite word.
I like
But
it.
yeah, reframing that for them. I've been learning that through my journey also because I've had all these things we talked about today. I've hit those walls so many times, not understanding how to articulate it, just kind of throwing things at them. Like, just do this, you need to do it. But like not realizing I need to actually have a different conversation, approach them in a different way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
My mind's like logical, but very emotional, and then you just see it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I always come out very logical on the performance or the personality assessments, but
Yeah.
most people aren't built the same way. So we need
No.
to change how we communicate.
Yeah, that's a tough skill that I've been learning. And even coming up doing this podcast really helped me kind of do that. Having these conversations with people like yourself, just it actually puts things into perspective. It reframes it. I'm learning. I'm hoping people out there are learning as well. Because these are tough things to really figure out and have these conversations when you've learned things one way, but it's not necessarily the right way. And trying to relearn and restructure how you're doing things for like yourself, your life, or your business, or your clients.
Yeah,
It can be overwhelming.
yeah. Well, I think it's really cool that you're doing this because I can imagine it'd be very helpful for your listeners.
Yeah, I know for myself, I've been learning a lot. This is almost like a therapy session, a therapeutic learning session for how I should do my business.
Yes, yeah. Well, how can I help you, Justin, today?
Well, you see here, these clients are they hurt me so bad. Sorry, I'm not crying, you're crying. But I mean, it really gets to that sometimes. Whew. Give me a minute, it goes blow my nose.
You have to have thick skin to be in this game, though. That's for sure.
I'm learning that. Yeah, you have to take like what is it, 100 no's to get maybe 0.5 yeses.
Yeah.
Well, something like that. But yeah, it's hard. It's tough. It's not easy. Like even being an entrepreneur, I'm learning. It's completely different than like working for a company. But that has its different things you have to figure out as well. Working with them, doing things their way, even though you don't necessarily think it's going the right way, but it's not your company, so you can only advise them. Then you
Yeah,
have your company, you get no's all the time, but it builds character, as they call it.
absolutely. That character that you can then reframe, right?
Yes.
I totally get it. I think we talked about this a little bit during our last conversation that I had a big health scare 2 years ago. I was, I spent the first 17-ish years of my career in-house in corporate America. I ate a bad chicken sandwich from Costco and got salmonella. And my heart got so inflamed that it couldn't pump blood anymore. So I essentially had a heart attack that was not caused by an internal blockage. It was just because of the swelling from the salmonella.
I didn't
And
know they could do that.
yeah, and long story short, I'm okay. It was a long recovery, but I'm
You're
basically
alive.
I'm
Yeah.
alive. I'm fully recovered. But they said, now that you've had a heart attack, you're exponentially more likely to have another heart attack in the future, and you need to manage your risk factors for the rest of your life. And so, diet
Ooh.
and exercise, of course, are big ones, but the other side is sleep and stress. All
Sleep is the
things.
most powerful thing I'm learning.
Yeah, and all of these things were there, right? It was a fast-paced, high-stress environment. Because I was so busy, I was sacrificing my diet. I was often working until 10 p.m., often midnight, and then going to sleep thinking about work and not sleeping very well. And so I was like, I need to take a step back and go into consulting, start my own business, thinking that it was going to be less stressful. But it turns out it's just a different type of stress, right?
Yeah.
But I can say I've been having so much fun. So you have to I think about it as you're finding your people. So it's not that the no's think you're a bad person. They're just not the right person.
I call it finding your tribe.
Yeah, finding your tribe. I like it. I like it.
That's so true because I've noticed those differences with working for a company and starting my own. It feels different. Like you said, it's different type of stress. I
Yeah.
feel it's, I want to say less stressful, but it just feels like you're accomplishing and building to a better purpose than you were working for someone else building their dream
Yeah. Yeah.
and the dysfunctional ways that they're doing it. I would do it my own dysfunctional ways. Thank you very much.
Man.
I want to thank you for coming on here today. It's been a really pleasure talking with you. It's been amazing.
Yeah. Thanks,
Learning
Justin.
about you, your business. It's sorry to hear about your Costco incident. You still shop there? I mean,
I've actually moved. Costco was my favorite store. But I moved away, so I didn't actually have to make that conscious decision. There's only Sam's Club near me, so I don't
I
shop at
can't
Costco
imagine
anymore.
that. I like going there and like your favorite place to go to, and all of a sudden they try to kill you. They're like, oh, what? Like devastation.
Devastated, yeah.
I'd be like picketing out there. No.
I know, and I feel like this isn't designed to be like a Costco bashing sesh, but I felt like they really did me dirty, It's like I've been shopping with you my whole life. The doctors say this happened because of your sandwich. At least help me pay my medical bills. And they were like, well, you can try to sue us, but you're not going to win. And for your
Jeez.
trouble, we'll give you a $500 gift card.
And you have to sign an NDA. No.
Yeah, and so it's like, oh man, I felt like they were a good company that was going to do the right thing, but I felt like I
It's
got,
always sad when companies do stuff like that. They're so big to fail that they can pretty much, oh, who are you again? And we just give you this and you'll go away. Like it's quite sad. Like we're human
yeah,
beings. Things like they did something wrong, it happened. Like make up for it somehow or like apologize. I don't know. But be a human being about it, and then you can move on,
yeah,
like a slap in the face. Like, wow, dude, thanks, guys. I really feel appreciated. Thank you. Go corporate America.
yeah,
I wanted to get back when you were talking about the fitness and what happened with your Costco incident. I feel like from that incident, you found a way that you can still be working and doing what you're doing while being less stressful. And I wanted to kind of home in on that because so many people are going through their businesses, their lives, and they're just working at this like 150% overworking themselves, overdoing everything, and not realizing that there is a way where you can actually have your pie and eat it too. Spend time with your family, build a business, and not overstress yourself. Now, in the words of some of the things that you've implemented in your business to kind of get to that part.
The American dream is all about do more, climb the ladder, make more money, buy more stuff, make more
Yeah.
money, buy a nicer house, make more money, buy a nicer house, buy a nicer car. And it's not
Sounds so
necessarily
unfulfilling.
yeah, there's no end. It's very addictive. And I always thought that I wanted to be a CEO one day of a multinational corporation, and I was going to get to that point by climbing up the ranks
Yeah.
of corporate America. And I actually feel very lucky to have had my heart attack to really remind me how short life is and how life needs to be about being happy and pursuing your passions rather than purely kind of in a way selling your soul to the corporate devil to chase the money. And
Devil's in the details.
devil's in the details. And so, I don't have a super engineered process personally about what kind of how I've changed my life as an entrepreneur, but I live kind of by a mantra of I want to make money doing things that make me happy. And there are a lot of things that I'm very good at that make me very happy, and that is the service that I'm selling. And so, if I don't want to work on a project, I have told clients no. If there's something that I don't want to do, I hire that I know needs to be done. I hire someone to do it. And nowadays, we live in a world where it is so incredibly easy to hire help, right? I've used Fiverr, Upwork,
Ooh.
Reedsy. I've networked with people on LinkedIn and hired someone that I've never met in person.
Or
Um,
LinkedIn, they're looking for you.
yeah, but it's amazing how connected we are. And as an entrepreneur or even a solopreneur, it can be easy to kind of feel isolated and
Oh,
forget
I
that
feel that part.
you have these other resources, and many times are incredibly cheap, right? Like sometimes I'll hire someone on Fiverr to like design my business cards or help me tweak a little thing on my website. Like if I need some inspiration, right? Like I'm stuck for some reason, this HTML code is not behaving.
Not working.
Just having someone on standby to say, okay, well, here's $30 and help me solve this problem. Boom, done. It's super cool.
We forget that just throwing money at sometimes will kind of rectify all the time that we would spend trying to do it ourselves. We
Yeah,
spend less money giving it to somebody else and then going on and doing other stuff. We forget about that. Like
yeah,
just trading time for money and money for time. You
yeah,
have the money, you don't have the time, or vice versa.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
I had to learn that. I'm like, why am I spending 2 hours on this? I could have had this done already by somebody else who knows what they're doing, and I'm not going to try to pretend I know what I'm doing here. Here you go.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I've always been a big DIYer, and a lot of times it
Yeah.
was because of cost. And then after the heart attack, it kind of just changed my thought process about it. It's like, life is too short. Just spend the couple $100 to get someone who actually does this for a living to
Yeah.
do it for you.
Yes, it really takes a lot less of the stress off of you. You have
Yeah,
time to do things that are more important for you at that time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
absolutely.
know I went through, I don't know if you read about my bio, but I had an overdose and died about 2.5 years ago. And that
Oh shoot,
experience
I
changed
missed
my
that.
life also. Yeah. I was
Crazy.
out drinking, doing coke, having a good old fun time, up to no good. A couple of friends started making trouble in my neighborhood. Oh wait, sorry, wrong show. But yeah, like that changed my perspective, and then it made me realize like what's important too. I always have this conversation with everyone that as entrepreneurs, it seems like there's something, some kind of pinnacle that we reach, or some kind of incident that happens, but it changes our whole life and perspective, and
Yeah,
throws us into entrepreneurship. It's like
yeah,
we have to fix a problem or find a solution because something that happened to us. And it's always
yeah,
so interesting that paradigm shift.
yeah.
Not some
Well,
people will never experience that. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I really do. I'm so glad that you're okay and you're here with us today.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think you're just like you said, you're really lucky to have had that happen at an age where you can still do something about it, right? Yeah, a lot of people have these experiences when they're in their 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and when it happens, they're just, yeah, it's too late to change, too late to do anything about it.
And then some people never have them. And I always wondered that 'cause it's so interesting not to have experienced so many things in life that actually change your perspective and how you look at things and help you change your life and your mindset. That
Yeah,
some people just never, it never happens. They stay exactly the same.
yeah,
They don't change. It blows my mind how that happens. I just don't get it sometimes. It's weird to me. But I know people out there with a very fixed mindset.
yeah.
They haven't experienced anything crazy in their life to make them want to change or be or do better as a human being.
Mhm.
This one didn't go fast.
Yeah, it did, but I think it's good. It's
Yes,
powerful stuff.
it is. I really like talking about these kind of things because life's about not just making money, but connecting with people. And like we said, finding our people or our tribe, doing things that we really like to do, that we have a purpose to do, and using our gifts in the right purpose. Because some purposes are negative and don't really put you in any good direction. Like my purpose before was doing coke and drinking. That wasn't really going anywhere, but to the grave, clearly.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
hear you there, man.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting. I'm bringing up my book manuscript right now because I think
Yes.
I have a good piece to kind of bring us all home.
Yes. Please.
Um, this is the dedication to my of my book. I really struggled with how to do a dedication. Do I want to have a dedication to one person or to a few people that have really influenced my life? And I ended up doing something a little bit different. And I'll read it for you right now. So I said, this book is for those who aspire to lead with purpose, inspire others, and make a difference beyond titles and accolades. It's for the dreamers, the doers, and the change makers. May it serve as both a guide and a reminder that true leadership leaves a legacy, not in achievements alone, but in the lives it touches along the way.
Ooh.
And I feel like that is
Resonate.
my kind of culmination of what leadership is. So many people just live their lives on kind of this autopilot and they don't think about the impact. And so I really felt like dedicating it to the people who are enlightened in that way, like you, who have this experience that unlocks this kind of really purpose in them to operate for the greater good.
That was so powerful, and I love that. That explains like my life in a nutshell too.
Awesome.
I'm sure many other people's out there can resonate with that.
Yeah.
Man, a moment of silence for our brothers in the friend zone. Thank you so much for coming on here again, Mike, before we leave today. Well, you just left us with a pretty good nugget right there. But is there anything else you'd like to leave our audience with before we wrap it up?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. I
And where they can
um
reach out to you as well.
check out my website, Apex Consulting Partners, sorry, no.com, apexconsulting.partners. Just published my book recently on April 8th, Leading in the Age of Digital Disruption. You can find it on Amazon or really anywhere books are sold online. And I'm very active on LinkedIn. So come send me a note on LinkedIn. Love to have conversations with people about really leaving that legacy and leading with purpose.
Hell yeah, brother. Thank you again, Mike, for coming on. Really appreciate your time. It's very valuable to me and the audience.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Justin.
You have a wonderful day.
You too.